So here I am in the beautiful Dun Laoghaire. A lot's happened since the last video. We've brought the boat back from Hasler back up to Conwy. I've got some footage of that I'm going to prepare and put on later. But this video is about how we planned and made our trip over to Dublin. After bringing the boat back from Portsmouth to Conwy, we've had a few smaller trips out, including a sail through the Swellies to Carnarvon. But now it's school holidays and we're looking for a different challenge. This time we want to sail to Ireland. But how do we go about preparing that type of trip? So for anything new, the first thing that we do is we normally have a look at the pilot guide. Now for the south coast, we use Tom Cunliffe's excellent The Channel Pilot Guide. And for Wales, we tend to use the Irish Sea Pilot. It's written by David Rainsbury. And the information for puffing to Holyhead, it says the key to this passage is finding the smoothest water at Carmel Head, yet holding a fair tide until Holyhead is reached. With a fresh to strong wind in any westerly quarter, this can be a boisterous passage. Timing is everything. Low water slack off Carmel Head is at high water Dover plus 5 hours. The ideal time to round the head westwards is about 45 minutes before this, giving time to carry a fair tide the 5 miles to Holyhead. It says, arriving early at Carmel Head will result in a shaking. Arriving late will mean being turned back by the tide. This is a safe plan is to leave good time to avoid being late, and if you arrive off Sermes Bay, you're too early to tuck into the bay to wait. So we've done our calculations based on this, and we found that Dover high water is at 13:10. So adding our 5 hours, Carmel slack water is 18:10, but then we want to take our 45 minutes off that, so we want to be passing around 17:25 really. Now Conwy to Carmel Head is 29 miles. If we make roughly 5 knots, that's 5 hours 50 or 6 hours to do that journey. So we know we need to leave by 11:25. The gate goes down at Conwy at 9:51. So our plan is to leave at 10, and if we arrive early, which we hope we will, we'll anchor at Sermes Bay. So we've set off just after 10. The gate's gone down and the tide is rushing into the estuary, so we know that this part is going to be slow going. We've had to push against the tide all the way so far, and the wind is mainly on the bow. Sometimes the wind does move round, and we've had the sail out a bit, but we're too close to the wind for the sails to be effective. We could tack, but I'm uncertain we'll have enough time to get to Carmel Head, so we're going on a bit of sail and a bit of motor. When the wind comes round, it's between 15 and 20 knots of apparent wind, so we've had to reef as well, as Celine goes better when she's level. You can see from our plan that we intend to go round Holyhead and into Sermes Bay. On the sea charts there's a transit line from Middlemouse. It goes over north of Westmouse and through to the Skerries. Now the pilot's guide recommends tucking into the coast and going south of Westmouse. We've asked around the marina and this is the way that everybody I asked goes. As we got to Linus Point it got a little choppy, but we could feel that the tide was beginning to slacken and we were making better progress. We arrived around 45 minutes early. We did a few turns of the bay and there was another boat waiting there. That boat set off about 30 minutes before we'd planned to, so we hung back to watch them and then we followed them through. Rounding Carmel Head turned out to be a bit of a non-event. I know in wind and tide that this can be a dangerous passage, but today was calm and we didn't have any problems. The rest of the tide helped us as we dropped down into Holyhead, minding the ferries as we went. This is our track, exported from our chart plotter. You can see here that we went to the north of Middlemouse, but then we stayed closer to the coast. We did go north of the starboard lateral buoy, that's important because there are rocks under the water there, but we went to the south of Westmouse, and then we were close round Carmel Head.
Sorry? I don't know yet. It's going to be on the port side.
We moored up quickly. You can call the club for a lift to the shore either by mobile or on channel 37, which is M1 on our radio. You can use any of the visitor buoys, and these are the first ones you come to. They have a black pickup float marked with a V. So that's the first day done. Tomorrow we cross over from Holyhead to Dun Laoghaire. following day we set off early to Ireland. Although the passage from Conwy to Holyhead takes careful planning, everyone I spoke to said the crossing from Ireland was a lot simpler.
Yeah, if you want to bring your microphone and swap, somebody else wants to charge, they can.
Leaving Holyhead, we were almost instantly hit by a strong current taking us north. But because the current's not fully north there, it was also trying to go around Anglesey to the east, and we ended up pushing against the tide to sail west for some time, which slowed down the start of our journey. This extended the time of the crossing, but also meant that we ended up having to push against the tide on the other side of the crossing to get into Dun Laoghaire. Apart from the ferries, there's nothing to hit along the way, and it relies on having good weather. The crossing can take in between 10 to 12 hours on a sailboat. At its most basic, the tide runs north and south through the Irish Sea, and it curves slightly over Anglesey, making the currents run quickly on the Welsh side. But because of the bay in the Dublin side, there's a less of a current over there. The tide runs in one direction for 6 hours, and then it runs back the other way for the following 6 hours, which gives a full 12-hour cycle, which is similar to our sailing time. So the most efficient way to get to Ireland is to navigate by compass. We point the boat in the direction of Dublin and travel forward on that compass bearing, letting the tide take us one way for 6 hours and then back the other for the next 6, putting us back on our track. If we were to travel pointing directly at Dublin and follow a path a bit like a car using a GPS, it would travel further and it would take longer, and that's because the tide is moving each way underneath the boat. It'd be a bit like running at a diagonal across a treadmill. When we get to the last few miles of our journey, we'll start aligning our track a little bit more with our destination, and if all goes well, we should be very close to Dun Laoghaire. We calculated the slack in the channel to be around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we estimated a 10-hour crossing, so wanting half of the crossing done before the tide changed, we left at 8 o'clock. Looking back, allowing for an 11-hour crossing may have been a better calculation. Our destination was approximately 285 degrees, so we pointed the boat on that bearing and we let the tide do its thing. We had calculated around 10 hours based on the boat doing 5 knots, but in the end, because of the tide, it took us around 11.5 hours. Eventually, the Irish shoreline came into view. I was surprised that I had a phone signal and internet for most of the crossing. There's a point where Anglesey disappears behind you and Ireland hasn't quite appeared yet, which has a lovely feeling of isolation. It's not quite Shackleton though, when you can still send a WhatsApp. As we approached Dublin Bay, we could see the 2 towers with their red lights in the distance. They were being covered and uncovered by rain as it swept along the coast, which is typical weather for the UK in August. The sailing was uneventful and enjoyable. Everybody took a shift at the wheel and we baked pizzas for lunch and had plenty of cake. It's important to keep hydrated at sea, and the crew worked really hard to make sure we had plenty of tea, coffee and everything else that we needed. We passed Kish Lighthouse and headed towards the South Cardinal Buoy. Burford Bank lies across the centre of the bay, but with a depth of just over 4 metres below chart datum, it's not a concern for us in calm weather. Either side of the Burford Bank are the traffic separation schemes, and outside of these are the inshore traffic zones. We're going to head towards these to enter the bay. As we did, we were hit by one of the rainstorms we'd seen crossing the bay.
Go back here in the dry.
You're alright down there?
Oh, lovely, thanks. Very snuggly.
But we finally entered Dun Laoghaire harbour just after 11.5 hours of sailing. As we approached the Marina, we gave them a call on the VHF to let them know that we were about to arrive. The Marina let us know that we needed to moor on our starboard side, and so we started to prepare the fenders.
Is it that one at the end? That I can see.
Dun Laoghaire is an amazing town to stay in. The Marina was clean, it was friendly, everything was very close to hand. The Dart runs just across the road from the Marina and it gives really easy access into Dublin. When sailing from the UK to Ireland, it's important to take identification. The day after we arrived in the Marina, we were visited by customs officials, where we showed our passports and they completed a form with some basic information on the boat. One of the questions on the form is whether the crew had any disagreements on the voyage, which made us laugh. So that's it, our first big trip as a family across the Irish Sea. It was an excellent trip and we can't wait to do it again. Our main learning for our next trip is to pay a little bit more attention to the tides leaving Holyhead. We think if we'd left at slack water or just a little bit earlier, it would have given us a cleaner start. But we're not disappointed in our journey in any way. All that's left to do now is to plan 1 or 2 short sails along the coast and to enjoy Dublin. See you next time.